After that, we're going to talk about some hardships we face and how that helps us build our resilience, because that actually strengthens our character, our mind, and our spirit. Then, of course, navigating our society is a tough one. We all try to figure out where we fit in, how we fit in, whether it's your friends, family, relationships, or even our spiritual community like this. And then, of course, we'll lead off to self-discovery for each and every one of us, because it is one hell of a journey, and we have a long way to go. And then, of course, roundtable. So now let's start with understanding our complexities. So our experiences involve a wide range of experiences, from emotional fluctuations to physical, mental, and spiritual challenges. And these are all intertwined with our quest for our purpose and our meaning of life. So as you can see, emotional highs and lows, they do affect our relationships, whether it's family, friends, romantic, spiritual community like this. And we have a lot of highs and lows that we can't always control. That's just how, we're not robots. If anyone says that, you're not a robot, right? But a key to that is realizing when you're having these emotional fluctuations, are you actually working on maintaining that instead of having this projected onto your environment or the people around you? So I would like to know from anyone in the crowd, an emotional high or low situation that actually really made you go, oh, let me stop and let me center myself. Not necessarily through the conduit of meditation, but has anyone ever experienced something that really made them say, let me stop and let me check myself? And don't be shy. I will pick on somebody. Simon. Yeah. No, but please. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. I'm glad Simon said that, because especially when I first got out of college and I started getting more involved in the engineering realm, I realized I don't care about corporate ladders, climbing them, getting recognition. As long as I can get paid, right, learn new skills, and support myself, I'll be happy. So I'm glad Simon said that. And of course, searching for meaning and purpose. The answer to life is not the number 42 for any of my science geeks that likes Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Um, it is very, very complex, and it does have an impact on our decisions and our goals. And I think for whatever reason, we have this fundamental drive of figuring out our purpose, and maybe that's just because of our ancestors wanted to figure out why we're here. From a non-secular point of view, let me just say that, right? Of course, that does shape our identity and our goals, but harnessing that and making it more understandable, that's definitely sometimes the most confusing part. Now let's talk about facing hardships, everyone's favorite. So coping with adversity and stress, that's kind of why we're here. I know that's definitely why I'm here. I came here in July 2022 looking for a meditation temple, and I bumped into Pat and B on Moonlight Meditation, July 14th, 2022. Yeah. And they've been stuck with me ever since. And of course, mindfulness practice, I think, is one of the ways we do that. And that's kind of why we're here. It helps us get acclimated to our changing environment. And we have so many different personalities in here. And I think that's the beautiful thing about our community, because we all have at least a similar goal as to why we're here. Mindfulness practice does help us adjust to our changing environment, our life, death, any kind of experiences that does affect us here. And with the family like this, it definitely keeps us going. That's why B and Nat are stuck with us. Of course, seeking support. That's exactly why we're here as well. This little kid right here, I think, was 12. And believe it or not, when I was typing this, I really wanted some pictures that really hit the moment. So unlike anything I've ever done, I asked Copilot. I would type in, this is what I'm typing. I want a picture that actually exemplifies these themes. And believe it or not, every picture you've seen so far kind of hit it on the head. That's why I don't trust AI. Yeah. And of course, personal growth through overcoming obstacles. Does anyone have anything they like to share and be vulnerable just for a little bit about an obstacle they have overcome that actually led them here? If not, I have one. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Paul. To second Paul, what actually got me into mindfulness and meditation and Buddhism was actually a nervous breakdown I went through around 22. And before Buddhism came into my life, I was actually into Zen Buddhism and Taoism from my grandparents. They had a fascination of Japan and Cambodia and a lot of cultures from the Orient. So, and that's what I came up. Besides, going to Catholic church. Imagine that, right? But during the nervous breakdown, I didn't really have anyone to understand what I was going through. And growing up, I wasn't really shown the best way how to communicate my feelings and thoughts, like most guys, right? Go figure. So on my 19th birthday, actually, at the university that I was attending, I met my first Buddhist monk from Thailand. He didn't know any English, but he really gave a really positive message in that auditorium. And that's kind of what helped me shift to figure out, okay, I'm going through this little episode, 2-3 years later, maybe this can help. And if anyone saw my library in my apartment, I have nothing but Buddhist books and mindfulness books. You would have thought that I invented the religion myself. Seriously. But Curtis, second to Paul, I definitely know what he goes through or what he went through to end up here. And I'm sure we all have something similar that we ended up here. Now let's talk about fitting in. Everyone's favorite, especially for you introverts out there. So, we're all here building this connection in this community, and this community means a lot to me. And I'm sure it means a lot to you and all the new people that are here. I'm sure when you get comfortable, you get to talk to some of us, you realize that this is going to mean a lot to you. And this actually helps us get through some things. When you get to know people, you'll see people kind of get a little bit more, what's I'm looking for, vulnerable. Like we've had people share that they ended up here because they were going through loss, divorce, lose their job, or anything you can think of. And when you get to know those vulnerabilities, you can kind of see that there's nothing that makes us different besides just the culture we come from or what we look like. We all have that human drive to figure out why we're here, the issues we're going through, and how to get through them. So we have this community that's very beautiful, but the thing we also have to recognize for you new people too is you have to participate in it to get that kind of good karma. Like B and Nat always say, you want good karma, you kind of have to do it. But the caveat, just don't do good things to have good karma. That's kind of not how the universe works for you new people out there. Now, balancing individuality and conformity, something I struggle with. But if anyone has anything they might like to share, feel free to be vulnerable. This young man, last time I saw him, had a boot on his foot and was hobbling just to come meditate with us. So I had to give him props for that. And I'm glad you're getting better. Yes, please. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. And the second B, I remember when I first moved here when I was, what, 27? And I can't tell you how many times I've met just people out in the world, and they would ask me, oh, how old are you? Why aren't you married? Why don't you have the big house and this and that? And, my inner New York would come out. Then I have to catch myself and say, what does it matter to you, So the second B, it's like, we have these social stigmas. If you're a certain age, whether you're a young lady or a young man, you need to be here and here and here and have these pivots and step ladders. It's like that doesn't really work for everybody. Maybe back in the day, that's kind of how it was because, yeah, now.
I was just going to say, I almost took the opposite stance. I was like a contrarian. And I would just do things just because it was opposite society. And I think there's a lot of people here, and I know Simon once took a contrarian stance, and he didn't really believe it. And he kind of, recognized that, hey, I didn't really care about that. I just wanted to play the devil's advocate. So I sometimes you got to be mindful. Yeah. So sometimes you got to be mindful of that too. Am I really authentic in
Right.
proposing this, just to be different, just to be outside the box, or do I authentically not agree?
I don't know, B, do you think he's natural contrarian? Yeah. Oh, I believe it.
Preteens mostly.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
Eva.
Yeah. I think one thing with conformity too is that it's like human instinct. And so I think one thing that I've kind of realized too is that I don't need to work against my human instinct. Like I want to be part of a group. I want to like belong. I want to feel like loved and accepted and like approved of. But it matters which group
Agreed.
loves and accepts and approves of me. So it's also about having wisdom about who we who we surround ourselves by. And so I think that's like when I was like talking to somebody today and they were like, keep your wide associations close. And that's also kind of lovely because I kind of don't really care how I dress and I don't like I just like want to feel
Agreed. Also, to second Eva, the past 2 years, being that kept stressing this little phrase called spiritual friends. And I remember either last year or the year before, when we were celebrating VSOC Day, and you gave a little speech about that, and you took a lot of photos, and you were like, I don't need to always have my outside friends and my spiritual friends combined. I can just keep them separate because, friends outside of our community might not always be on the same page as our spirituality. And it really stuck with me. Like, our group of friends here is a little bit different from the friends I hang out with, but this means more to me, you know?
I can't agree more. It's great to have like many different friends, but definitely when, and I have all my friends that don't come here and they just aren't able to drive, which is fine. I
Yeah.
can still have many different hats. But one of my favorite sayings that I've stolen from my men is we're parts with a purpose.
I like that.
And I say all the time.
Yes.
And so this is my first time here, so I obviously can't comment on how this particular location has influenced my like social life. But I've been meditating for around a year, and my experience socially has almost been a bit of the opposite, where I feel like my like experience meditation has made me kinder, and I try to be more selfless, and then that causes me to actually get along with people better than I did previously. So I feel like it actually, not that I'm trying to conform, but naturally I'm connecting with people better and like enjoying people's presence and being kind to myself.
You'll fit right in. Keep him. All right, self-discovery. Let's see what this is about. So, of course, we want to understand our personal identity because sometimes, as we grow up, it's actually preset for us. If you have both your parents in your life or a parent, they might have a certain roadmap for you to follow. And sometimes that's just not what you want to do. I'm sure there's some people in here that, like Nat, wanted to go against everything their parents wanted them to do. And that's okay. That's okay. But I think the biggest thing with that is learning from our experiences and our mistakes. Is there anyone that would like to share an experience where they actually learned from their mistake that led them here? Dun, 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 dun.
These are some tough questions.
I'm glad I took 2 months to do this. Oh, hi. Mhm. I agree with you. Sometimes my best meditations are here, and sometimes my worst meditations are here. And what I mean by that is sometimes, especially on Wednesdays, some of us come straight from work, and sometimes your job can just stress you out. So you're not in that mindset where you can come, relax, let go, and detach. So even though I might sit on the Zufa and look like I'm meditating, sometimes I'm just sitting there and enjoying the vibe because I need that. I can't necessarily meditate right after work, but maybe when I get home, I can have the best meditation session, but that's only because I came here first. So I definitely feel where you're coming from on that.
No, I just want to add something because I
Yeah.
think it's really important. And this is one of the reasons why I always try to get our teachers to emphasize it because I think it's important to realize how important it is to have a community. Because it's really difficult to, because I know there's definitely going to be people once they know the meditation method, oh, I can do this on my own. I don't need to go. And it's like I gotta drive and whatever. But the community really helps you sustain it long term. The
Thank you. No, please. So, and here we start the conclusion in the round table. So as I was going through my mind, trying to put this on paper and then in a PowerPoint, I was trying to emphasize GEM, which everyone that comes here, you'll hear B and Nat re-emphasize and re-emphasize GEM. But does anyone remember what the acronym stands for? My man. So I was thinking, okay, how can I implement that in this wisdom talk? And then I realized I had an epiphany. Let me put it on paper. So generosity, we learn through societal interactions. What I might think is generous, Paul might not think is generous. My girlfriend might not think it's generous if I eat her last sandwich, right? But I think it's generous because she shared it with me, but I didn't ask, you know? And as far as ethics, you know, sometimes we might think we know what we want, maybe through our upbringing or through our friendships, that, oh, this is my mindset, this is how I think, this is right. But as you learn more about yourself and your self-discovery and your growth, you might realize, okay, this group of friends is not really for me. They're a negative influence. I need to be maybe around people like this, kind of like what B said, our spiritual friends. And of course, mindfulness. We really need that. I wish they taught that in schools from at a young age, because, you know, being a human is very complex, and without mindfulness, I know sometimes I feel like I would go crazy. Like, don't let this cool, calm, collective face trick you. I have my moments too, just like every single one of us, you know? But that's how I was thinking, maybe this is how I can implement GEM in this. And I just want to say thank you. Namaste, my favorite Kilinamita, which is my favorite Pali word for spiritual friend, admirable friend, my noble friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we do have 2 or 3 more minutes. Does
Oh.
anyone want to, well, 1 more minute.
Questions?